Hello and welcome to the first video on the Carcheologist channel. This is my first time posting onto YouTube, so I'm still getting used to things, but I want to show you around Hiroshima for a second. Not only is this city well known for its streetcars that roll around the city, but is also well known for the Toyo Kogyo company, commonly referred to as Mazda. Whilst I was on a 3-week excursion around Japan last year, I decided to visit the Mazda Museum. Let's have a look around together. After a 10-minute train ride from the main Hiroshima train station, which is served by the Shinkansen line, I managed to arrive at the Mazda headquarters, where they have a quick little bus ride down to the Mazda Museum, which is located amongst their factory buildings. I wasn't able to book an English tour of the museum myself, they had already filled out pretty quickly, but I was able to get a Japanese tour, so I was able to brush up on my Japanese skills a little bit. Whilst I waited in the foyer section, they had this very nice collection of Mazda Demio models from the 1990s all the way up to the 2010s. It was really interesting to see these kept in concourse condition, considering I do see these on a regular basis, but often with various battle scars from poor parking and whatnot. The exhibit also included the Hazumi concept car from 2014, which includes a lot of the current Mazda design language. Also on display in the main foyer section was this small little Mazda Roadster pedal car, whether or not it's powered by electric motor or not, I'm not too sure, as well as some of their older commercial vehicles, such as this tricycle that was produced around the 1940s. After the bus ride through the factory premises, which I couldn't film because of a strict no photo policy on the bus ride, we arrived at the main entrance of the museum and was greeted with this very interesting concept car from the 1960s. This is the 1964 Mazda S8P concept car designed by Giugiaro at Bertone, and was originally designed for Alfa Romeo but was rejected for the 105 series Giulias. Mazda bought the design soon afterwards, with intentions to fit the car with a rotary engine, but this, however, never went into production. Now, with a 1.5 litre piston engine, this car was launched in 1966 as the brand new Mazda Luce, a classy, European-styled sedan which would serve as the first generation of Mazda's flagship model. It was great to see this car in person after hearing the stories about how it had Alfa Romeo roots. The museum exhibit starts with 3 examples of their early commercial vehicles ranging from the 1930s to the 1950s. Included in this section is this small green tricycle, and yes, that is a Mitsubishi badge. The two companies collaborated together for a few years before separating and going their own ways. Also on display was this 3-wheeled truck which was powered by a 700cc engine, very basic design with a lot of flat panels, but this would become the inspiration for the T1500 and T2000 series trucks, which became popular amongst Mazda's commercial vehicles in the 1960s. We now enter the main Mazda Museum collection, and greeted by these 1960s passenger vehicles. Due to the popularity of small K cars in post-war Japan, Mazda launched the R360, a characterful little coupe with bubble car proportions. Parked next to it is a very historically significant car to Mazda. This is the 1 millionth car that Mazda built. It's a 1963 Mazda Carol 600. Launched in 1962, the rear-engined Carol originally was sold with the 358cc engine to meet with K-car regulations at the time, but it was also available with a 600cc engine for 2 years. The Carol was one of Mazda's best sellers in the 1960s, being one of the very few K cars available with 4 doors, and this popularity led to the Carol being produced until 1970.
一段と洗練され使いやすくなったニュータイプマツダキャロル360
Next to the Carol is this Mazda Familia 800 van. This is another one of Giugiaro's designs, and this one was launched in 1963. Initially only available as a 2-door van, sedans in both 4-door and 2-door variants were available the following year. Along with a new 1-litre engine launched in 1965, a coupe body style was also added to the range. I've seen all of the 2-door variants in person, but have yet to see a 4-door in the flesh. These first generation Familias, sold as the 800 and the 1000 overseas, are very rare Mazdas. Continuing the theme of commercial vehicles, this is a 1968 Mazda Bongo. This is the cleanest Bongo van that I've ever seen. It is a fantastic example of an everyday workhorse from the past that has been kept in concours condition. Think of the Bongo as a Japanese equivalent of the Volkswagen Type 2. Rear engines like the Combi and a variety of different body styles, but with a smaller 1-litre engine. The most well-known example of a Mazda Bongo van was the one featured in Mad Max in 1979. It was owned by the film's director, George Miller, who used it to ferry around cast members as well as transporting props and other equipment. There's an urban myth going around that George Miller used his own Bongo van for the car crash stunt due to the film's budget restraints, but this isn't true. Instead, they went to a local wrecking yard and found another Bongo with no engine. They painted the donor car blue to match with his own Bongo, and you can tell the difference between the stunt double and his own personal van because the rear bumper's missing on the stunt double. Moving away from film factoids now, and this is a lovely example of a Mazda Luce rotary coupe. Originally presented as the Mazda RX-87 concept car in 1967, it was a pioneer of Mazda's rotary revolution of the late 60s and early 70s. This coupe variant of the Luce was once again designed by Giugiaro, giving the car an exotic European look. Fitted with a 13A rotary engine, the Luce Rotary Coupe served as Mazda's flagship model alongside the Cosmo Sport until production ended in 1972. Continuing on with the theme of the rotary-engined pioneers, let's look at this Mazda Cosmo Sport, one of the greatest examples of the rotary engine. Even though they made 1,100 of these cars because they were hand-built, I was lucky enough to see 3 examples in person when I was in Japan. Something I definitely didn't expect. Not only was this a beautiful example of the car, but I also liked how they had one of the original line drawings on display. It's fantastic to see all the original planning that went into such a beautiful design. The example that they had on display here is a Series 2 example. You can tell it's a Series 2 car because the Series 1 had a slightly different grille at the front, as well as the wheelbase being a slightly different length. They also had another Cosmo from the mid-70s, which was available in both piston engine and rotary engine in the RX-5. Parked next to that was this lovely green RX-7 Savannah. I particularly liked the tartan interior trim inside. A very well-kept Mazda Familia from the early 80s was also on display. Some of the Australian viewers watching may be able to recognise this car. This was the template for the badge-engineered Ford Laser. However, the Laser and the Familia, sold as the 323 in Australia, were both sold alongside each other. Yet again another strange example of badge engineering. They had another example of the Savannah, this time a mid-80s model in GTX trim, alongside a Familia Estina from the late 80s. One of the very few family hatchbacks with pop-up headlights, which makes it look like a 4-door RX-7. Naturally, being a showcase of Mazda's most well-known models, a MX-5 Miata was also included in the collection. These were sold under Mazda's short-lived subsidiary brand called Unos, as the Unos Roadster here in Japan. There was another example of Mazda's forgotten luxury subsidiary in the form of a Unos 800 parked alongside some other sedans from the 1990s. A Mazda Kronos, which I haven't heard of before, as well as a Lantis, which was sold as the second generation of the 323 Estina in export markets. It was unusual to see such pristine examples of the first generation and second generation of the Estinas here, as I remember seeing a lot of them growing up. Moving on now to the Mazdas of the 2000s. On display is a Atenza, sold as the Mazda 6 overseas, as well as an Excella, sold as the Mazda 3 in export markets. And a quick hello to my good friend Adrian, who has a Mazda 3 SP23 in very similar specifications. Also on display was this Mazda RX-7 FD from the 1990s. This one being a limited edition Spirit RX-7 with 1500 being produced. Whilst researching this video, I discovered that the RX-7 was sold under the Affini nameplate in the 1990s. Affini was one of the 5 dealerships established by Mazda in 1989. These included the standard Mazda dealerships, as well as Unos, which I mentioned earlier. I recently discovered that Unos sold Citroëns for a little while, as shown in this 1993 brochure. However, this wasn't the only European brand to be sold under Mazda dealerships here in Japan. At Mazda's AutoZam dealerships you could find Lancias as well as the Auto Bianchi Y10. And then there was the interesting case of Autorama. These were Mazda models rebadged as Fords, originally intended for export markets such as Australia, New Zealand and Taiwan, but for some reason were also sold in Japan as well, alongside their Mazda badged counterparts. But it wasn't just comprised of badge engineering. You could also get North American models such as the Thunderbird and the Taurus. I wonder how many Japanese salarymen bought Tauruses in the 1990s. It wouldn't be easy due to how notoriously tight Japanese streets are. Also in this exhibition was an area dedicated to Mazda's motorsport history. This included a very special Mazda 787B which took the first place in the 1991 24 Hours of Le Mans. Also included in the racing section was this Mazda RX-7 Savannah rally car from the late 70s, as well as this Mazda Familia Coupe in 24 Hours of Spa configuration. This was probably my favourite of the racing division cars they had on display here. I really like the shape of the R100s. You can tell it's a rotary-engined Familia Coupe because of the rear lights, as well as a different front-end design. The Familia Coupes with piston engines had slightly different rear light clusters, as well as a different bonnet design and different front grille. And to finally finish off this section of the exhibition was this Mazda Demio in race configuration. Overall, the collection is really interesting to look through, and it seems as if they change the cars quite frequently. At one point they had a 1960s Luce sedan on display here. If I could add any car to this collection, I'd probably add a Mazda 323 from the 1970s, the hatchback model known as the Bug-Eye amongst enthusiasts. It's a nice hatchback design from the time period, and I quite like how a funky interior trim with tartan upholstery was available on these cars. That's what I would pick. If you have any suggestions on what to add to this collection, let me know in the comments. A lot of the museum was dedicated to the manufacturing and the designing process here at Mazda. It explored various topics such as the design studio, as well as the signature red colour used by the Mazda company, produced by the Tako Minuri Colour Production. One of the displays was this interesting rotary-inspired EV motor. This section of the museum strongly explores the high level of craftsmanship that goes into the production of their cars, exploring the techniques used to achieve this level of quality, looking into areas such as quality control as well as crash testing. Various concept cars were also on display here, demonstrating the current design language used by the Mazda designers at their body styling studios. This here is the Mazda Shinari concept car from 2010, which strongly inspired the third generation of the Mazda Atenza, also sold as the Mazda 6 overseas. It was also my first time seeing a clay model in the flesh. This one is of the Axela. I also got to see in person here the 2015 RX Vision concept car, alongside the Mazda Vision Coupe concept. The museum ended with the iconic SP prototype. A lot of automotive journalists have stated that this might be an RX-7 concept, but I feel as if this might be another generation for the MX-5 due to its proportions. I'm interested to see how this design goes, because I quite like the styling. After the museum we were able to briefly see the production line. No photography is allowed in that area, so I wasn't able to get any footage. Back at the museum entrance with the S8P concept car from the 60s, they had a current lineup of their model range, essentially acting like a showroom, so you had the chance to sit in the driver's seat. They also had a vast collection of model cars on display in one of their glass cabinets, which was very interesting to look through. Overall, I really enjoyed my experience here visiting the museum, and I definitely recommend it to anybody who's in the Hiroshima area. They are free, but you need to book in advance, and spots fill up really quickly. The Japanese tours start at 9:15 in the morning, whilst the English tours start at 2:15 in the afternoon. Getting to the museum is very simple. Just take a 10-minute train ride to Mukai-Nada Station, which is easy to get to from the main Hiroshima train station. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you again very soon. If you want to see similar content like this, I plan on posting more videos like this soon, so please follow along by subscribing to the channel. Until then, bye for now, and thanks for watching.